Hi, everyone. I want to remind you that in the last session, we watched what I thought was a pretty cool video. It was actually a commercial for Pfizer called Be Brave. And you realized it was almost as if the author laid out red herrings or false clues the way mystery writers do. These clues led us to a particular perspective about the boy, a wariness of him. So at first, we were really suspicious of him because of the way his posture was so secretive. He was sneaking around an alley, he was all bent over, and he looked around sharply at the sirens. Then, most of us were even more unhappy with him when it seemed like he was spray painting buildings, staying out all night, and making his mother disappointed. Remember that scene where she kind of rolled her eyes at him and looked at her watch as if thinking, once again, you're up to no good. And what's important here is we didn't sympathize with the boy because we had no idea what he was thinking or feeling. However, by the end of the video, we know that he's made this beautiful mural for his sister, who's clearly very sick. And once we know what was going on in his head, we sympathize with him. So our perspective of this character changed completely. Today, I want to teach you that one way authors control readers' sympathy for a character is by giving or restraining access to that character's inner thinking. When readers have more access to a character's inner thinking, they tend to sympathize more with that character. Readers then can investigate which characters they sympathize more or less with and why. A couple words that I want to define for you. To sympathize is to care about or feel support for another person, and in this case, it's a character. Inner thoughts, you've probably heard this phrase before. It's when an author reveals a character's unspoken thoughts and feelings. So to do this work today, we're going to return to the short story we've been reading, and I'm going to go back to one scene. It's one of the first scenes with the boy's father. It's when he wants to ask him about getting a ride with him in the morning for work. So I'm going to reread this to you, and we're going to identify how the author provides inner thinking for some characters, but not for others. So follow along with me. Wander into your cramped living room after dinner that night. Work up the guts to describe for your old man the importance of competing against the best. You've outgrown your local run. It's time to put a foot in the deep end. So what if he doesn't even know the rules of the game? If all he does is sit there silently inside the TV, working a toothpick in his teeth? So what you think, Pop? About what? Would it be cool if I went with you to work every morning so I could play some ball down there? He'll look at you suspiciously, then turn back to his cop show and his toothpick. You'll take this as a no and assume the fate of the most important summer of your hoop development now rests in the hands of the county bus system. Okay, so we're going to take a look first at the first couple sentences, which I've highlighted. Wander into your cramped living room after dinner that night. Work up the guts to describe for your old man the importance of competing against the best. We know that because the boy has to work up the guts, that he's nervous to ask his dad. We get the feeling that he and his dad don't have the most supportive relationship, and his dad doesn't often say yes to what he asks for. And then over here we say, or the narrator says rather, if all he does is sit there silently inside the TV. So again, we get the boy's inner thinking. His dad doesn't talk to him much. He's kind of a zombie sitting on the couch watching TV, doesn't really interact with the family too much. So again, we're sympathizing with the narrator. And then the dad doesn't even say anything. He'll look at you suspiciously, then turn back to his cop show and his toothpick. The dad says nothing, and we don't know what he's thinking here. So, the dad could be thinking, man, I'm just too tired to deal with this right now. Like, leave me alone. I worked all day. Or he might be thinking, I don't really want my son in that neighborhood. It's not a Mexican neighborhood, and there's a chance that police could harass him. I got to really mull this over. But we don't know any of those potential thoughts, so we don't sympathize with the father. And then we get another inner thought from the boy: the fate of the most important summer of your hoop development. So, if the boy calls this summer the most important summer for hoop development, like, improving his basketball skills, we know that this is super important to him. And we feel pretty disappointed alongside him that his dad has no reaction. He's not excited for him. He doesn't say yes. He doesn't even say anything. So, guys, today, what you're going to do is help me write a letter to the author of this story, Matt De La Pena. And this is going to be in the Student Digital Reader's Notebook for Session 5, Day 1. So the directions say, finish the letter to Matt De La Pena explaining how he led you to sympathize with the narrator, which is the boy. Use one piece of text evidence. So I've already used one piece of text evidence, and you're going to use another. And guys, I just used the example that I just talked us through. Dear Mr. De La Pena, in your short story, I sympathize the most with the boy, who is also the narrator, because you included his thoughts and feelings in every chapter. I feel like I know him and I can relate to him. For example, when the narrator first finds out about the pickup basketball game at the Muni gym, he needs to ask his dad to ride in with him to work. On page 4, you write, work up the guts to describe for your old man the importance of competing against the best. We know from this inner thought that the narrator is nervous to approach his dad, and we sympathize with him, especially since this is a feeling many teens can relate to. And I know as a teen, as a kid, I was scared of my dad. My dad rarely said yes to me whenever I asked to do something. He would say no, or he would say, go ask your mother. And then it would just go back and forth like that. So, I can relate to that. I want you to take note that I have quotations around my text evidence here and here. I've told you what page I found it, and it's copied word for word. So that's what I expect you to do. What I want you guys to do is find one other place in the story where you find the narrator's inner thoughts, and that leads you to sympathize with him. And I really don't mind if you use something from the video, the passage that I just read. That's totally okay. So that is your work for Session 5, Day 1. Okay? In the next session, I'm not going to make a new video, but in the next session, you're going to be doing this work for your own short story. So this is going to be Session 5, Day 2, which I still need to write here. We'll include it right now. Session 5, Day 2. All right, you are going to insert the title of your short story and the author here. And then you're going to write a letter to that author explaining how they led you to sympathize with a character. Be sure to provide at least 2 examples from the text. So just like I did with Matt De La Pena, you are going to insert the author's name here. So you'll delete this and, include Mr. or Ms. and their last name to be polite. And then you're going to give 2 pieces of text evidence that show inner thinking or feelings, or it could be dialogue too, or an action, something that reveals your character's sensitivities and relatabilities, something that makes you root for them or sympathize with them. Okay, and I want you to explain your work. So I hope that you understood this, and I hope that this is enjoyable for you. Good luck, and we'll see you next time.